On this episode of Balance and Manifest, Your Rise to Greatness, we talk to retired Army vet and professional wrestler, Derek Pisaturo. Derek grew up as one of 3 boys in a troubled home. At 17, he fell in love with professional wrestling. A run-in with the law would give Derek 2 choices, years of jail or join the military. After joining the Army, Derek would get severely injured and have his military career abruptly taken away. Derek opens up about recovering from his injury, having to develop a unique training style due to his physical ailments, working with troubled youths, and rekindling his love of pro wrestling and finding a new home with All Elite Wrestling. Sit back and enjoy this episode. Welcome to another episode of Balance and Manifest, Your Rise to Greatness, the podcast where our guests share their stories of overcoming hardship and finding their way to success to help inspire and motivate others. I am your host, Sean.
And I'm Sav.
And we'll just get a little bit of house cleaning out of the way before we get going. Do us a favor wherever you listen to the show, like it, subscribe, share. If you can, please leave us a rating. It'll help us climb in the rankings and get these stories to more people. And as always, show is sponsored by 9 Realms Athletics. Follow 9 Realms Athletics on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Go to 9realmsathletics.com. Use promo code MANIFEST for discount on your next order. We got some cool new shirts out that we're really excited about. So go over there and get you guys one at a discount.
Hell yeah.
So today, we got a good buddy of mine, Mr. Derek Pisaturo. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Cheap plug. I'm actually wearing one of your shirts. So.
I know we're all sporting it today.
Right.
Got my sweatshirt. He's got his sweatshirt.
So how you doing?
Good. I got great news. We were just discussing it about the VA not doing my surgery on my shoulder, so I'm happy about that. I'm going to one of the top sports doctors here in Arizona, so super excited.
Awesome. And any word on, so people are caught up, you have torn labrum?
Oh,
correct?
Yeah, full labrum and rotator cuff. So I'll be out probably 5 to 6 months from lifting, wrestling, all of that. So
damn. So for people listening, Derek works with All Elite Wrestling, AEW Wrestling on TNT. Will be on TBS.
TBS first of the year, yes. Yeah. And then Rampage will stay on TNT. So Dynamite will strictly be TBS.
So we'll just start there. How long have you been wrestling?
So I've been in and out of pro wrestling since I was 17. My mother actually signed my waiver slip for me to get started. And we went to this guy named Eddie Sullivan, and the second day we were there training, he broke a guy's arm.
Oh my God.
It was to show us young guys what not to do. And
I was gonna say, what did your mom think about that?
Yeah, well, I learned real quick that we needed to shop around and find a different wrestling school to go to. So we ended up at Steve Islas, the Navajo Warrior, out here in Arizona at his school, and I'm very thankful. The guy's been in the business just over 30 years now, and he had his run of dark matches in WWE, and now he currently works with 2K Games and WWE, and he does all the mocap stuff with that. And he's still wrestling after all these years. So
when did you sign up? I also at 17 went down to wrestling school with my parents and about this time of year and signed up and started like 2 months after graduating high school, went straight to wrestling school.
Yeah. I didn't graduate. I dropped out of high school to actually pursue professional wrestling. And
wow.
Oh, wow.
and got my GED and just was kind of grinding a 9 to 5 and going to wrestling school after all
Solid.
the time. So family has always kind of laughed at me about that, but here I am after all my years in service and, you know, working with troubled youth and all that. And now I'm back in the wrestling world again. So it's been a ride.
That's awesome. So how many years on and off have you been wrestling for?
I would count 17 total.
Okay.
But it's been over 20 years since I started. So
yeah, so we're about the same time. I think I started in 2003.
Yeah, 2003.
Yeah.
Well, it just shows that, you know, there's no one way to find what you love and find success. Like, I'm sure your family makes fun of you for it, but damn, like.
Yeah, and it's funny because my brother has always been really supportive of me, like with everything, but wrestling. And
wrestling.
But wrestling. He's the oldest of the three, and he was so excited that I joined the military and decided to go that route. And then I got injured in Afghanistan, and he's like, I get a call every now and then. Are you still doing that fucking wrestling shit? He'll do it. You know, I have the luxury of being able to travel the way I do, you know, due to my retirement. So it's been a nice addition to my life, to be honest, to go back into the wrestling world. So.
Well, and was that because, was that sort of like foreign to your brother, or was it just because?
My brother was just he was a state wrestling champ in high school, and never popped him, if you will.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Never excited him. So he's never really cared for it.
So it wasn't kind of like quote unquote real wrestling in his eyes.
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't know this, but you know, I found out through, you know, just family members talking about my grandmother on my father's side actually wrestled, you know, and traveled with circuses to do so.
Oh, whoa.
So, yes, it's been in my blood. So
yeah.
That's pretty awesome. You don't hear that too often about the kind of the origins of wrestling.
Yeah. Well, and I always like thought about like how it happened, how she got into it. And, you know, I just wish I had the opportunity to ask her. She had passed away long before, you know, I really cared for wrestling. So,
wow.
That's awesome. For anyone listening, there's a great movie. It's totally off topic, but Blood, Sweat, Piss, and Vinegar. And it's about, what was that?
I have not seen that.
It is about way back with like Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young when they started, and it's
my grandmother wrestled with them. Yeah.
So maybe she's mentioned in it. Who knows? It's way back. It's really cool. Those women were hardcore.
Yeah.
Hardcore badasses back in the day.
Yeah. Well, my grandmother, before she passed from her diabetes, like I remember her taking a San Diego telephone book and ripping it in half.
Holy shit.
Damn.
Damn.
She would work it forth and then just, you know, and she was 13 during World War II, you know, and she dealt with like all that type. She was just a hard woman in general. So, yeah.
So if anyone listening, you're a huge motherfucker. You're a big dude. Have you always been a big dude?
No, I am not. So well here, let's get into my past, if you will.
Yeah, let's go like sports history, how you kind of grew up, got into it.
Yeah. So I went to the wrestling school. I traveled with wrestling for a long time. I got to work with a lot of great people, John Cena, Frankie Kazarian, Chris Daniels, Joe, you know, Samoa Joe, Luther Reigns, better known as Horseshoe, Tom Howard. You know, a lot of the Cali guys would come here to Arizona and we'd go back and forth and then we'd travel, you know, Mike Knox. It was just, I don't know. I was really blessed with the group of people that I found in wrestling, and they took really good care of me. And it just, I don't know, wrestling happened fast.
Yeah.
And so I was always just kind of along for the ride. And I realized wrestling started to consume more of my life than what it should. And, you know, I was failing in at work, you know, and then from failing at work, you know, I started getting into drugs and then pain pills, trying coke. And then it just got to the point where I wasn't making the money I needed to make. Yeah. So I decided federal embezzlement. Right.
Oh, wow.
And never had been a criminal a day before in my life. I had a really hard upbringing, single mother, 3 boys. So I always tend to say the streets kind of raised me. Mm-hmm. And even that being said, I still was never a criminal. So
how old were you when that happened?
What part?
The embezzlement part.
Yeah, 17 turning 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had hired a bunch of basically people on probation at the car wash, and I allowed them to go out and do what they did, and I would sign them in at work. And then in return, they would do what they wanted to do. And in return, I would collect their weekly paychecks. So
whoa, that's a whole operation.
Yeah. So lo and behold, finally one of them got caught doing something, and then investigate me. They started to investigate the other people, and they had film of me on camera cashing their checks after they signed them to me. And yeah, it became a whole big thing. And I had a judge pretty much just give me the option. He gave me 2 years because I was almost 18. He gave me 2 years to figure out if I wanted to go to the military or to go to prison.
Jeez.
So, yeah. So I enlisted about 2 months after.
Pretty easy choice.
Yeah.
I enlisted 2 months after, and then I enlisted for a year forward. I did what he asked me to do, but I knew I wasn't done kind of with my life at the time that I wanted to join the military. So I took that whole year and just kind of partied because I knew I was going to the military. So once I got to the military, all the wrestling kind of stopped for me. Mm-hmm. So I didn't do much. And I skipped a large part in between there. Part of the partying and drug use with wrestling was because I had somebody in wrestling try to transition me to cage fighting. So I actually had 6 semi-professional fights, and I was 6-2-1, so a total of 9 fights as an amateur. So, and then that kind of led me down the path of a lot of partying. Sorry, my dog.
That's all right.
But yeah. So I kind of wanted to stay in fighting, and I kind of wanted to go back to wrestling. And I just knew, like, in the long run, like, I had to figure it out while dealing with the military anyways. So I kind of just quit both and focused on military career. And that's what I wanted to do. I went to Fort Hood, Texas in 2006. Yeah. I was stationed there for 4.5 years, and during my time, I deployed to Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan 9 months out of my 15-month tour before I got hit over there and injured. My C3, C4, L4, L5, and left foot paralysis. Ooh. So I had a traumatic brain injury, had to learn how to read and write and kind of do all that over again. So it was just a big cultural shock to me because I'd never been injured.
Yeah.
Right.
Always that kind of just, if something happened, I would be okay, you know? And so spent 2.5 weeks in Germany, in Longstuhl. Nice little, hospital over there. Not too bad. They told me I wouldn't have use of my left leg due to nerve damage. We all know, you guys know, for those that don't, I'm walking just fine. Yeah. I do a lot of crazy shit, even with my ailments. So
do you have numbness still, or what is it like
So
now?
I still cannot feel the bottom of my left foot whatsoever. So I can feel pressure. There's zero sensation.
Okay. Okay, so you
Yeah.
have your pressure receptors. What
Yeah.
how do you work around that? Do you have any like fallbacks
So,
physically, or do you compensate in a
well,
certain way?
yeah, my right IT band is fucked for life pretty much
Oh
because I
yeah.
walk more than my left. But with lifting, if I go super heavy with squats, I have to put a box behind me just so I know where my feet are.
Okay.
Um, I know where my right foot is, but I also need to focus on pushing off that left.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's almost like your
So
proprioception is kind of tweaked.
yeah, very much so.
Kind of tweaked a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. So like, I feel comfortable with 315 pounds. My foot kind of walks out sometimes when I do it.
Mm,
So anything over 315, I'm very hesitant because I worry about, hamstring tear with that foot going out too wide.
totally.
So, yeah, but anything over 315, I usually put a box behind me and just go heavy. So
Sweet.
How was the process of, we have another buddy we talked to who also in Afghanistan took some rebar to the face and
wow.
was in hospital in Germany, had to learn same thing, had to learn how to talk and walk and all that stuff over again. How was that process? Like the injury, did you realize what happened? And how did you get over to Germany? Like he said, he just woke up and he was like, "I'm in Germany." Had no clue.
No, after that had happened, I was back in it was Bob Sharana in Afghanistan, and um, they were kind of doing tests on me in just the medic tent, and I had known where I was, but I didn't know why I was there.
Mm.
And I remember the fluorescent lights, like blinding headaches,
Oh.
like it was here, and then my ear pressure, and that's when I knew. I was like, oh, I'm really concussed. Like I couldn't form sentences, but I could say certain things that would help them understand what I was trying to say. And then that's when they were like, oh yeah, he's got to go. So they flew me in a C-130 on a back stretcher from Afghanistan to Germany. It was like the most grueling thing I'd ever done at that moment, just because if you've ever been on a back stretcher, they are ridiculously uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're pretty awful.
Yeah. It wasn't even the pain of my injuries that were bothering me. It was literally just how stiff that board was. So it sucked. But yeah, when I got into Germany, they weren't really worried about my rehab because they were sending me back to Texas to do it. So when I got back to Texas, I was using a walker and my left leg would drag. And it was like that 3.5 months. And I'm just a stupid, stubborn retard. I don't accept no for an answer unless it's a woman. Just clarify. Well, but all jokes aside, like I don't like being told, oh, here's a physical ailment, you can't do this. That I've never had it happen, and I wasn't going to let it happen.
Yeah,
So
double middle finger.
yeah, and when the Army told me that they were med boarding me, it was probably the toughest thing I had to hear, because I had made a life choice that like I was afforded this opportunity and that I needed to stay in the military to have my life like correct. Both my brothers, one's a half brother, one's a foster brother. Both of them had no direction in their life, and the military is what gave them everything. And they're both career, and so this was going to be my thing. I was going to do career too. And, I was going to stick it to everybody that's, oh, you dropped out of high school, you're not going to make it, blah, blah, blah. Dude, I grew up in a fucking single wide trailer. If I lived in anything more than that, I made it in life,
Yeah.
So I just really wanted the Army to work out for me. And they pretty much pushed me out, said I was unfit for duty. And it just, it ripped my soul apart. And so I took that really, really fucking personal.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of your self-worth was a part of that path that was just ripped away from you. Like,
yeah, I felt like they stripped away my pride, and I wanted to build myself, $1 million man, faster and stronger. And I set a goal for myself that I was going to take lifting seriously, and that I was going to change the dynamic of lifting and what it can do for people. And like, that's just kind of what my thought process was. And I mean, I started to work on myself first. And then like, next thing I know, 5 years into it, I'm 63 pounds heavier.
Woo. Well, and at that point, at the point that they told you that you were unfit for duty, were you rehabbed?
So they were rehabbing me, and I was still scoring close to like a 280 out of a 300 on the PT test. The run was murdering me. Because when you have drop foot, you can't feel things. So I was very cautious about how I ran. I didn't want to roll my ankle, cause more injury to my leg, and it's taken me years to develop how I move and how I walk and how I lift with this injury.
Right.
And so they were concerned about my run. They weren't really concerned about everything else. My riding had came back, but my speech was still slow. I still stutter even to this day from my head injury. And I have aphasia a lot. I lose track of words a lot. So they were worried about that as well. And, they kind of just were like, well, you're fit, but you're not. Here's 10%. Goodbye. I'm like, what? Yeah. And so, which, I'm not gonna knock the VA, but I'm not gonna say they're great either, because they're not. But the VA really did a phenomenal job with my case. I've heard of people that it takes 8-9 years for them to get their rating and all that. And I went to a liaison for the DVA or DAV, and literally submitted my paperwork. They pulled everything up online. They already had it, and then pushed it through. And within 4 months of me submitting my forms with all my injuries, they literally outsourced all of my appointments to real doctors, not VA doctors. All my ratings came back, and boom, I got my 100%. I was actually diagnosed at 140%, but you can't go over 100. So that's what it was.
Jeez. So along with the physical, your physical limitations, and like you said, you got to develop your,
Sorry.
No, you're all good. Redevelop or develop your own way of being able to train and walk and all that and lift and all that. What were the mental, did you have any like mental roadblocks, any lasting effects that, came along with that physical journey of trying to build yourself up and relearn all these things and come up with ways of being able to physically do the things you were told you're not gonna do?
What's funny is like you keep saying physical. For me, it was more the mental.
Okay.
The mental. Physically, I knew what I was capable of, and it was mentally being able to tell myself to fucking figure it out. This is what we got to do. So I would be down on myself about like days that I didn't put in 100%, and I know I didn't put in 100%. And like this whole lifting culture for me was really my big fuck you, to everybody that said I couldn't. So when I didn't push myself, it became a mental game with me to be like, oh, you're just another person that said they're gonna do something and did.
Yeah.
It's a good motivator.
And like that's not me. Like I try to put my money where my mouth is, and it's been one of those things that I've just really responded well to. And the people that I surround myself with, respond pretty well to it as well. So,
Was that expectation you set for yourself? Obviously it was for you, but then also following through with that, was that kind of for everybody else that told you couldn't?
It's really weird because after a while, I'm glad you asked that, because this is actually what I should have said too before I paused. Was it actually, after about the third year, didn't become about me. It became about my wife.
Oh wow. Okay. In what way?
Well, one, the baby weight. We had a kid, and she just wasn't doing anything for herself to cut the weight. And which, by the way, I admire you. You're doing everything you should do. I love watching your video.
Oh, thank you.
It's fucking amazing. But so it became about her. I wanted to inspire her, to show her, hey, look, I wake you, at 4 a.m. to help me put my socks on. I like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you should come to the gym with me.
Yeah.
And it was through kind of pushing her that I pushed myself more, to show her that she could do it as well. And then, from strengthening my core, my legs, everything, like I could put my socks on. I can touch my fucking toes now, like in my head, like. And for the first like good year and a half to 3 years we were together, like she helped me put my shoes on, she helped me put my socks on, like it was bad, and it just became one of those admirable things where it was like, okay, like she's done enough for me, let me do something for her. Now I'm gonna show her we can do this together. And she started taking lifting pretty serious after that. So.
No, I mean, I've seen pictures of her and she looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
like, she's got some guns. Yeah. Well, no, that's amazing that you guys did that as a team. That's like, I mean, just foundationally in a relationship, that is a key component to a lasting relationship, right? Doing stuff as a team, really just fucking figuring it out together. Like,
yeah, that's exactly what it was. Figuring it out together.
Yeah.
If for anybody who's struggling, so I used to have this idea of I'm not working out with my significant other, because with like exes, when I was like getting into, trying to lose weight, was like they had different goals than I did. I just didn't like working out with anybody. Savannah and I, our first date was basically at the gym. And we started working out together, and then my mindset kind of changed from don't work out with your significant other to it's okay. And it's fun, and it's a builder for the relationship. But how did you manage, because it's not easy. So did you guys have any bumps in the road along the way with that?
She fucking loves lifting with me, and she hates it at the same time. So I am not a nice person when I'm in the gym.
Yeah, I've worked out with you.
I'm like, but with you, like you blatantly said, you need to understand I'm not going heavier than this. Like you told me this is my limitation. I'm like, I'm adding weight, and what did you do? You stayed put. With her, like I just have such a drive to see her be better that I don't know how to listen to her when she's like, I can't do anymore. The fuck you can't.
It's probably just the word. I can't.
Her quads are blowing up and she's shaking on the leg press, and I'm like, fucking drop set. What are you doing? Why'd you? There's like, so sometimes she gets pissed at me about that. And then on the flip side, it's like, we're doing a leg day. I'm like, no, go get your own fucking squat rack, because I'm not fucking unloading and loading plates.
Okay, that's valid. That is valid.
Right. well, not just that, but like, I'm like level, she's 5'3", 5'4".
To change the bar every single time. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like either that or I'm squatting majority, like I'm going almost 90 just to get the bar off the rack. So
yeah. Not conducive for a good workout.
No, but I would say besides me being an asshole, I love working out with her. Like I love training kids, as well. Like I train a young man who's 24 now, and he's been with me for 3 years. And again, he asked me to start training, and I was like, I want to know if you're serious. Show up 4 a.m. for 2 months, and we'll do this. And every day at 4 a.m. he was there.
That's
and
amazing.
So 6'3", 208, and he's now 6'3", 256, and he's all natural. I'm very proud of that kid.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Were you big in the gym before this injury? Like, was that something you always did? Were you always athletic, or was this like a new thing?
I mean, other than high school wrestling and I played football. I was actually a really, really good free safety. I had a one D1 scholarship offer, but that was my junior year. I didn't even get to play my senior year because I dropped out. But the athleticism's always been there, and I kind of took it for granted. I was that talented like asshole, that didn't put effort in unless it was game time.
Yeah.
And my wrestling coach hated me for it, and and so did my football coach. And it was weird because when I actually wanted to pursue professional wrestling, I gave it my all, and I think it was more the theatrics of professional wrestling that made me want to give it my all, the ring psychology and all that. Like it's always been a draw for me. So it wasn't just being an athlete in the ring, it was theatrics of it. So I really actually practice.
Did you feel like it was more one, a challenge, but two, just more stimulating?
Oh, stimulating by far. Yeah. I mean, Sean can tell you, there's no reaction like a reaction of a mob.
Yeah.
A mob. I won't even call them a crowd because are mobs. Like literally they hate you or they love you. There's really no in between. And if there is you're not doing your job well enough.
100%.
Right. I know. I in the time that we've been together, I knew zero about wrestling other than like Hulk Hogan, and like it was this big show, obviously, but watching it with him and learning the ins and outs of it, it is a obviously visually it's a production, but it's a strategic production.
Yes, and what's crazy is a bunch of carny motherfuckers run it.
Yep.
We were the most unorganized, unprofessional people there are, and we just make it work.
Yeah.
And we're the only people that understand it, And unless you're brought into that world, you'll never understand how ridiculous pro wrestling really is.
Every show starts late. People show up late. People get hurt. You got to change the card in the middle of the show, and nobody in the crowd has any fucking clue that anything happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously, like the last match I just had, it was a 5-way with a tag team that was in there, which made no sense to begin with, and then. They were just like, here's kind of what we want, figure it out. And so all the way through the match, we had no clue what we were doing until we were doing it. But it turned out great. People came up to us and they were like, that was the best match ever. God damn this thing.
Well, and that's talent in itself, right? Like not knowing what you're doing, but also not having a plan and just doing it and doing it well to where the crowd wants to be there and they want to watch it and they're engaging. I mean, I kind of, circling back to learning about wrestling is like, as long as they're making noise about something, it's a good thing. Where if it's silent, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I would say I'm talented. I wouldn't say I'm great. There's greatness out there, and I get to watch it being ringside, security for AEW. When greatness happens, it's you just kind of it. And so when you had brought up, oh, it's just talent being able to do that. Well, yeah, but like it's so much more too. It's a dance, It's a draw, it's a pool, it's a this or that, and it's I don't know, man. It's kind of magical, especially like you said that when you draw that crowd, it's awesome.
So did you and your wife meet prior or after the military?
After the military, I actually dated one of her friends. I met 3 of them in the bar. She was one of 2, and the friend that I dated was the other one. And yeah, I just I don't know. It just happened. It was kind of weird.
Now, how did that start? Was there any difficulty, like, because you just had to relearn, talking and writing and all, like, was there, how was that in the beginning of that?
Retarded. I'm a smooth operator, buddy. Okay. Let's just say that. No, there wasn't. I mean, she kind of knew what my life was, and at the time that her and I had met, I was working with troubled youth while going to school to get my mechanical engineering degree. So, yeah, I got a mechanical engineering degree that I don't use. That's fun. I hate math so much, by the way, and that school was horrendous. But yeah, so when I was going through all that, like I was kind of like learning like this new job working with youth. So like she just kind of like really didn't even care about my elements. She was more worried about like, kind of creating a relationship. So that's what she did. She kind of stuck by me through even like a lot of my mental like instability. So I was a bad alcoholic, probably for the first 2 years I left the military. That was like another stress on our relationship. And it was just weird. I had a good friend one day ask me why I drink. I said, I don't know. And he goes, you should try quitting. And I just quit for a year for no reason. So I think that's kind of what saved our marriage.
Did you drink because of, was it like a product of the injuries and like in PTSD, stuff like that?
PSD for sure. I was self-medicating pretty heavy. When I was actually going through my rehab, the VA, or not the VA, the Darnell Medical Center on Fort Hood, Texas. Okay. And like, I'm not going to say names. I'm just going to say the whole facility pretty much was handing out opiates like they were fucking Smarties. And I was receiving 90 perks every 3 weeks.
Holy jeez.
Yeah. So, it became to the point where I had so many that I didn't know what to do with them.
You flush them down the toilet.
Well, it's funny because like my brother had come into town from Oklahoma, and Fort Hood, Texas. It was only about 8-hour drive, and we got our tattoos done. And I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself standing there with my brother. And I was like, oh, fuck, like I have a problem. Like this is a problem. And I waited till he left. And I went and grabbed the pills and flushed them and never turned back.
What was it that you didn't recognize? Was it like physical change, or was it like a mental thing you didn't recognize yourself?
Dude, it was physical for sure. Like had big dark bags. My face was skinny, but I was like a skinny fat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my face was just narrow, but I had a gut. Like my arms were tiny. My legs just looked like crap. Like it was just disgusting. Like I literally was killing myself one pill at a time. And that was a weird moment in my life where I realized addiction could be real if you let it.
Right. Totally.
And I'm not trying to people who say they're, addiction is real or isn't real. For me, addiction isn't real. You choose to be an addict, and I chose. So.
Yeah,
And
everybody chemically like seems to have a different reaction to it, and some people can just go, "I'm done," and that's it. Did you have any sort of like withdrawals, anything like that?
Dude, 3 days of withdrawals. By day 2, I was thrown up. By day 3, I had nothing left in my stomach and throat. So, yeah, and that just kind of, that was the starting point of me really taking physical therapy serious too. So like I could no longer mask my pain through Percocet. So when I was in there every day, I would be in real pain versus, my pain I thought I was in while I was on Percocets.
Yeah.
So,
well, like my mom has various back injuries, and she kind of went through the same thing with her doctors prescribing her just whatever the fuck to try and figure it out, because she would come home with like these combinations of narcotics and opiates and stuff, and she came home with a bag of what they gave her, and she's like, what the fuck do I do with this? Just like a bag of pills. Like, it's baffling to me just how easily they just go, yeah, here you go, not knowing the consequences.
Epidemic right now, right?
What was that?
I said, but you wonder why there's an epidemic right now, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah. Totally.
So that's all it was for, in my opinion, anyways, was opiates. I don't conspiracy theories, but yeah, that's all we were there in Afghanistan for, was opiates, and they're reaping the benefits of it now, in my opinion. So.
When you're going through physical therapy and you're feeling that pain, was it like, you have a lot of back stuff, and it was your process like strengthening core, going through that, and like, did it get a lot worse before it started getting better?
So my neck, my back, my core has always been pretty good. Mm-hmm. It was more or less just not being able to feel that leg and that foot.
Gotcha.
But my neck was the worst. The C3, C4, like, I mean, I could roll my neck now and it sounds like it got rocks. Like I hear it, people don't, but I can hear it. It sounds like rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, there was one day during physical therapy, I was just pushing, and I just got this splitting headache, and the headache was so bad that they thought I had meningitis. Like I was running a fever. My head hurt so bad.
Whoa.
And that's why they thought it was meningitis. They went in, they did a spinal tap to find out if I had meningitis or not. Came back negative. I had no flu-like symptoms, no nothing like that. I was literally had a fever from how bad my head hurt. And I was bedridden for 3 days. They ended up putting me on a morphine drip to get me to sleep. So, and then like, I still get pretty bad headaches, but nothing like that. So, but time to time, the neck is very bothersome. No.
Did it just stop, or was it something that you did in physical therapy that helped it along to chill it out?
So a towel actually. There's a lot of movements you can do where you hold a towel and you push back and roll to side to side and different things. That's actually how I strengthen my neck. I know those discs will never be the same, so right. I just want to try as big as possible. I mean, Sean, you have no worries, dude. I don't even have a neck.
So I was gonna ask. It's the same thing. Like I have back injuries, and it losing weight and going through that process of being able to work out. Like it got bad until I focused heavy on lower back, on core, strengthening everything around the spine, and that.
Dude, deadlifts changed my life.
Yeah.
Like everyone's like, you have a bad back. Why are you deadlifting? And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like when I started deadlifting, that's when I really started hitting my physical peak. Like that's when I started getting the strength that I needed for everything else, because I was able to strengthen my deadlift, legs so much, my ass, my core, even my lats. Like it was just I felt like a brand new person from deadlifts. It was crazy. And I had never deadlifted prior to my injury ever. And people are like, that's not how that works. You can't deadlift back. I beg to differ. So
Funny you say that. Have you heard of? I'm a fan of his. Like Robert Oberst talks about how he doesn't deadlift and thinks it's too risky and like shouldn't be done. Especially with like a lot of athletes, that the risk is not worth the reward. Basically, what's your kind of thought on that? Because I'm kind of the same train of thought as you. Is there's stuff I'm not supposed to do, I guess, but like it saved my life.
What is Robert Horst, right?
Robert
Strongman?
Oberst, yeah, the strongman.
Yeah. I've met him twice. That's funny.
I think it was on Rogan.
But what I do know is that he's never placed first. So let's start with that. Like, you don't deadlift, you're a strongman, you haven't placed first. It should say enough for lifting theory, pal. Like, that's what I would sell him.
Shots fired.
You got me fired up.
But there's something to be said about like having that drive to just kind of go, fuck you, like I'm gonna do it anyway, and then make it work for your body.
Well, like I don't like, I have a really strange lifting technique. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's what suits me for my elements, right? And what I found out is that it's not just for me. Like it's I told you about the kid I train, and he trains exactly the way I train now. And he's never had an injury, knock on wood. But I train for strength endurance. I like to be strong for a long period of time. I think lifting the moderate weight for a lot of reps and then high weight for still moderate reps and stuff like that is kind of like the key to what has built my foundation. Like I said, 63 pounds in 5 total years is what at my biggest.
Yeah.
I've had a few times where I've cut weight or whatever, but I just I really like take pride in the fact that I changed how I lifted, because I knew my body's in elements, and then the strength endurance part just kind of came with it all, and I was able to like just I don't know how to explain it. It's different. I mean, Sean, you lifted legs with me.
Yeah, so it's almost like a power building. Like a combination of powerlifting and bodybuilding. It's that idea of the heavy weight and high reps but it almost takes, like you said, it almost takes a different mindset to do the two at the same time.
Yeah. Everybody usually throws up with me.
I was close.
Yeah. The first couple of times, everyone usually throws up with me. And, I don't know. I just think because I had no knowledge of what lifting was, that's just kind of what I developed for myself. And it's what's got me to where I'm at, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really strange because I had no concept of lifting. I never knew what powerlifting was. I never knew what bodybuilding was. Like I knew of bodybuilders, but I never paid attention to any of it. And I always thought it was kind of funny, like, why do I want to look like a turkey? Like that brown glow and just, like, I don't know. And so when I knew I was unfit for duty, I just kind of developed a plan that I wanted to be strong for a long period of time. So, and I think my best rep range for 405 was 16 reps on squat. Yeah, without a pause. And then my best rep range for 315 on bench was 18 reps. So
that's combine numbers.
Yeah.
Well, 25, I can do 4 sets of 25, no problem. Like that's easy. Not with the shoulder right now. But.
Yeah. My trainer brain is kind of curious. So you didn't deadlift until after the military. It was like a new thing for you. You were learning while you had your ailments and whatnot. What are the specificities of your mechanics that are maybe different from someone who just deadlifts normally?
Well, so like the left foot thing again, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but like with my left foot, like deadlifts, like I'm wonky. I'm wonky as all get out. You know, a lot of people will be like, oh, you kind of cat back that. Well, I don't know where my foot is. So even if I cat back it, I still pulled 605. Eat a dick. But like, I mean, 605 at 235 pounds, like I'm very proud of that.
That's
you know?
monstrous.
Totally.
Yeah. And so, so I would really focus on pushing off everything, no matter what I was doing. And I would just really focus on hip movement. And, you know, I still have not watched Olympic lifting. I don't like Olympic lifts. My shoulders would kill me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You know, like that overhead snatch shit, like it just, I'm built for that. It's not in my forte. So, you know, I watched some of it and I kind of looked at the techniques of their hips, and then I watched powerlifting, and I'm like, okay, some of these motherfuckers have technique, others are just gorilla strong.
Yeah.
And, you know, bodybuilding was the one thing that I could grasp and go, okay, I could do that, but I could do it this way. And I can mobilize my hips by doing this, or I could, you know, and so that's kind of like, it's weird. One day I'm in the gym and I was deadlifting 275, right? And, you know, I'd pulled probably into the low 500s by then. It's like for 3. And for some reason, I'm like, I wonder if I could clean this. So I deadlifted, I came up, I went back down, tapped it, came up and snatched that shit, right? And so now I'm holding 275 here, and I'm like, wait, what do I do now? I don't know how to drop this.
How do I let this go?
Yeah. And then I heard my buddy Justin, he's like, press that shit. And I was like, oh. Right? So I pressed it, and I do the little leg thing that Olympic lifters do. I just fucking strict press shit, just right. And I'm like shaking, and I'm all over the fucking place, and I get it, and I lock it, and I just, you know, drop it and run. And everyone in the gym is looking at me like, what the fuck? And I'm like, okay, never again, not trying that.
Yeah.
But I pressed 275, so I was pretty proud.
That's awesome. Press that shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I like about this is, so I had this conversation at the gym about 2 weeks ago with a guy, a buddy there who's does neuromuscular therapy, and we were talking about form, and I was talking about, can't remember what it was, that my form on something was a little bit off, and he goes, well, that doesn't really matter. He goes, because your body, if that's how you train, your body will adapt. And of course you want to have good form, but like with you had to adjust, and you had to shift it. So someone might look at it and go, yeah, your form's not right, but you had to adjust that, and your body compensates and learns that way. So then that's how you do it.
I'm so happy you said that, because I tell everybody every time when they're like, hey, why do you lift like that? You know, I was like, because it feels comfortable to me.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody gets on their bench and they go real wide, like I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, oh my God, my fucking shoulders would be screaming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'll watch them bench, they'll lock it, whatever, you know, let's just say 245, right? So the guy hits 245, locks it. I walk over and, hey, why do you bench like that? You know, and he goes, oh, it feels good. Like, I'm comfortable with it. I'm like, okay, you know, well, slide it in your hands and try benching like this, you know? And the guy takes it off the bar, he'll go down and he can't come back up. And it's like, why? Well, because his shoulders and his chest are so developed for that lift, the way he has lifted it for so many years, that when he comes in, his triceps aren't there. And now he doesn't have that front delt that he used to push in the beginning, you know? And so like everybody lifts a certain way, whether it's proper form or not for you, might not be for you, but for that person,
yeah,
it could be, you know? And so I just give people ideas on how to change what they do. And, you know, for some it works, for others, they stick with theirs. It is. Yeah.
And I think that's important for people listening. Like if you have things like, injuries, ailments, you have stuff that's like something's a little off with your body, you know your body better than anybody else. So if you want to do deadlifts and someone's coaching you, like, you have to do it this way and it just doesn't feel right, but you position yourself a little bit more. Like when I do squats, I squatted today, my standard back squat form it's not like a sumo like you see a lot of these guys, but it's not narrow. I'm a little bit wider than a normal squat, and for me that's just comfortable.
And especially like
doesn't kill your lower back. That's why.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That too.
No, you're totally fine. I was just kind of mention is like working around injuries, but then also like your body's going to develop that way. But the worst thing to do is to not do it, right? The worst thing to do with an injury is just to not do anything. So just do it and adapt, and eventually you'll get strong and your muscles will stabilize the way that they're going to adapt.
So I had 2 MRIs on this shoulder, and this second one was on Thursday, just recently, right? Or sorry, Friday. And they went in with a 4.5-inch needle
I've had that done before. Yeah.
Yeah. They injected dye, right? Whatever. And the doctor leans over to me and he goes, it's fucked up in there, right? And he goes, when's the last time you lifted? And I'm like, dude, like 3 days ago, I pressed hundreds overhead. And it's like with a torn rotator cuff and labrum. I'm like, yeah. He goes, hey, I got to be honest, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He goes, because your delts are so strong that's the only reason why you can move your arm right now.
Yeah, compensated for it.
And like, I have a torn rotator and labrum, and I mean, look at my movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
insane.
So really, like working around your elements. Yeah. Like if I didn't continue to lift shoulders, like where would I be at right now? So I'm hoping, with that being said, my injury will heal quick.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Cross all the fingers.
So when did you get back into wrestling? Because I know.
So sorry, if you've ever seen the movie Big Fish, that's my life. Like
it's one of my favorite movies.
Like, dude, I'm telling you, like I've done everything in life, like pro wrestling, cage fighting, the military, then I work with troubled youth, got an engineering degree, and then quit working with youth, started a podcast. Mm-hmm. Right. So I started a podcast and it was called Whiskey Tango Talks. My producer quit on me, so it is no more, but you still can find it on Spotify if you're interested. So I started this podcast and I'm like, man, it would be really awesome to invite my old trainer, and I just kind of manifested it, just said it out loud. And, my producer used to be my old tag team partner from when we were 17, 18, 19, so he was like, yeah, that'd be really dope, and 2 days later, I walk into the gym down the street and there's my old trainer. I'm like, what? Oh, like this is fate. I'm like, hey, dude, started a podcast. I'd love to have you on. You work with WWE right now. It'd be awesome to hear some of your stories. He said, oh yeah, I'll be there. And so we do the podcast, and I'm like, for old time's sake, throw me a chop. So he throws me a chop. And then,
of course, because that's what wrestlers do.
Right? Why not? And so he throws me a chop. And we shut off all the cameras. We closed down the podcast, and he goes, hey, kid. He goes, you put on all that fucking sides for what? And I was like, for me. And he goes, no. You got to do something with that. You got to get back in the ring. And I was like, no. Right? He goes, no, you got to get back in the ring. I was like, I don't think that's smart, And he goes, I do. He goes, I got an anniversary coming up. It's our 15th something year anniversary of this whatever show. And I was like, okay, what about it? He goes, we'll just put you in a rumble. And I was like, you know what? All right, let's do it. Right? Last rumble I had worked, I was 20. And it was Frankie Kazarian, me, and somebody else. And Frankie and I forget who it was. They tossed me over. I think it was just some other indie guy. Frankie ended up going over. But anyways, so I kind of knew what to do in a rumble and kind of knew what not to do, right? So do the rumble. I take a couple bumps. and I'm in there and I'm calling shit just to see kind of what I had. And I picked this guy up for power slam. I told him to slip off, throw the line. I was going to duck the line, kick him, and stun him. Right. So basically, I just told him, I'm like, hey, slip off, throw the line, I'll duck the line, feed. That's what I said. And I hadn't been in the ring in years. And the kid's just looking at me like, oh shit, okay. So I pick him up for a power slam. He slips the slam. I turn, he throws the line, I duck, I kick him, give him a stunner. Right? The fucking crowd goes nuts. And it's just in the middle of a rumble,
Are you communicating this in the ring while it's happening?
Oh, yeah, all in the ring while it's happening.
I still think that's so crazy that that's how that goes. Like,
it's an art form.
Yeah,
it really is. And and there's times guys won't even give you that much. Sometimes
Oh yeah, there's some that don't do anything.
No, sometimes it's just next you lock up. Next thing you know, they're chain wrestling, and then you're getting the Iggy, and then from the Iggy, you got to chain wrestle. You got to give them the Iggy back, and then they take over. And next thing you know, you're getting snapmare drop kicked in the back of the fucking head. And you're like, oh, okay, I got to sell this.
Yeah.
Lock up again. Here we go. Sometimes it's just hand movements, hand gestures, look in people's eyes. It's pretty neat. So, yeah. But when I hit that kid with that stunner, and the crowd just fucking popped, I was like, oh fuck, I knew it. I was
oh no.
I gotta get back in there. And so I went back to Steve at the end of the show and I said, you knew what you were doing, motherfucker. And he just laughed and he said, welcome back, kid.
He's like, who, me?
yeah So
that was pretty recent then, because I think when we met, because my buddy and I were doing our wrestling podcast, and I had just randomly found your show and saw some like videos or pictures, and I was like, hey, we should, I hit you up to do an interview. And I think at that time, you said you weren't really wrestling, you were kind of getting back in.
It's been 2.5 years, dude.
Yeah. Jesus.
It's been 2.5 years. And so I had another guy on my podcast named Roman Roselle. And Sean, you know the story, so I don't mean to bore you with it, but
no, go for it.
I try to keep it as short as possible. Roman was the oldest collegiate athlete to ever grace the NCAA. And I had seen him in the gym, and I could tell he was a veteran, and there was something kind of off about him. And I told him if he ever needed help or wanted to talk, that I was here. And one day he just kind of took me up on it. And I said, hey, dude, you know what? I got a podcast. Why don't you come talk to me on the podcast? And so he came on the podcast. Oh, look at that. I caught it this time. Came on the podcast. We talked a little bit. He didn't really open up like I thought he would. So it kind of just turned into a casual conversation. And after the podcast ended, me and him started really having a good conversation. I said, well, what do you do now that you're a retired Green Beret and you're wrestling at ASU? What do you want to do with yourself after all this ends? And he goes, I want to do pro wrestling. And I was like, I know a few people. He's like, what do you think? I've been doing wrestling on and off for years. And you're kidding me. And I said, no, I'm not. And I said, here's the name and number of these guys. Get a hold of them and they'll take care of you. And Roman got a hold of them and they were like, fuck this guy. And they wouldn't train him. So he somehow got connected with Dan Severn through ASU, and Severn's an alumni. And Severn started training him in pro wrestling on the wrestling mats at ASU.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, if you've ever taken a bump on a wrestling mat, like it, yeah. And he said the first 3 days he wanted to quit. Like he said, it was the worst training he's ever had in his life. And this is somebody who, came from special forces. So he's not a slouch.
Worst like hard, or worst like inaccurate?
Like killed his body.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, there's no give on just a wrestling mat. And on top of it, if anyone knows Dan Severn's past, that dude's a beast.
Yeah. He's an animal, and he was hurting Roman every day. And so finally Roman just like calls me and he's like, I got a hold of Teddy Hart. I'm going down to the school that he recommended to Tucson. And so Roman went down to the school to Tucson every day for 2 months. From where we live is a 2.5-hour drive. So he did it every day, back and forth in his Prius. So, 5 hours every day in a car just to train for 2 hours. And I was just like, man, that's dedication, I said, dude, let me talk to my guys again and find out what's going on. So talk to my buddies again. They're like, look, dude, if he's serious, tell him to come down. So right as they said that, somebody caught wind that Roman was trying to pro wrestle and knew his background. So WWE gave him a tryout. So after his tryout, then the school that told him no ended up taking him. And then so I ended up at a show just to watch. And this was after my Rumble experience. And Roman comes up to me and he's like, hey, dude, let's fucking tag team. And tag team wrestling is my favorite. A lot of people like working solo. I really enjoy tag team. So I was just like, you know what, dude, like we'll try to make it work. We're both veterans.
Yeah.
Like we could do the military gimmick, even though I can't stand it. Like you could throw a rock at a wrestler in Georgia and he probably has like a military gimmick.
Yeah.
So, they probably have a military gimmick. So I can't stand it. But, I was real hesitant at first and I told him, yeah, but I still was on the fence about it. So every time he tried to get me to come train, I kept like blowing it off. And one day I get this call and it's like, hey, this is Tim Jensen from Grunt Style. I heard you and Roman are trying to be pro wrestlers. I was like, wait, Tim Jensen from Grunt Style. I was like, okay. And he's like, well, are you interested in being sponsored? Yeah, I am actually. And he said, well, I'm going to fly you out to Salt Lake for this show. I want you and Roman to wrestle. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like, yeah. And so we go out to Salt Lake. Mind you, I've never tag teamed with Roman ever. I didn't even train with the guy. And I hadn't had an actual wrestling match other than the Rumble since then. And so we show up at Salt Lake and they give us these two guys out of Colorado and I put the match together and we went out there and killed it. It was weird.
And when was this at this point?
Huh?
When was this?
2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And what's funny is like Roman had been training 2.5, 3 months at an actual school.
Oh, wow.
When all this went down. So he was still really green.
Yeah.
Tim from Grunt Style, Tim Jensen, has been a huge wrestling mark all of his life. And so he sees the match and he goes, that's your first time wrestling together ever. And I said, yeah. He goes, that was fucking good. And I was like, well, I appreciate it. And I was like, are you just saying it, because you're a fan of wrestling? He goes, no. I wouldn't invest time and money if I didn't think it was good. And I think it was good. And so, like we just kind of started tag teaming and we were together. We were together for 2 years now. And then I just recently walked away from Roman as a tag. So, yeah.
How did you get connected with AEW?
So that's again, Roman is probably the most hardworking individual that I've ever met, but he's his own worst enemy. I won't get too much into him, but a lot of my wrestling opportunities were brought to us by the fact that Grunt Style sponsored us, right? And indie wrestling promotions didn't have to pay to fly us out. Grunt Style would pay for it. So that was a big thing. Yeah. And we would get bookings all the time because of it. Second was Roman's work ethic. That guy literally picked up, left Arizona, moved to Kentucky to go to OVW wrestling. While in OVW wrestling, he gets hooked up with this guy named Rod Hicks. Rod Hicks drives him down to Georgia, takes him to the Nightmare Factory, and then just kind of, they were looking around, poking around there a little bit. And then somebody had mentioned that Diamond Dallas Page's studio was down the way. And so they left the Nightmare Factory, went to Diamond Dallas Page's studio, showed up. Roman introduced himself, said, hey, I have a really big idea I want to present to you. And here's what it is. It's called Warrior's Purpose. I want to help vets do your program. Well, Diamond ate it up. They became best friends. And so next thing you know, Roman's at the Nightmare Factory training. He's working for DDP. DDP is basically a co-owner of the production company that runs AEW.
Oh,
Gotcha.
Wow.
So yeah, it just kind of became like God damn, this thing, I'm so sorry. And it just kind of became one of these things where it was like this person, they want to meet you. And then, so I ended up going out to Georgia like once, twice a month. You know, we do shows out there, or Diamond would ask me to come do a videotaping with them, or, hey, come to my house. We're having a Christmas party. And next thing you know, I'm sitting on the fucking phone in Diamond Dallas Page bathroom, taking a shit, texting my trainer, going, I'll never believe where I'm at right now. And a true story. I said, I guess you could say I made it. I'm shitting at Diamond Dallas's Page. So
I think you text me there also.
yeah, I did. I did. So yeah, it was just it kind of all played out. And then Sean Dean, the captain for W, another veteran, kind of heard about us and our story, and was training at the Nightmare Factory at the time himself, and was excited that we were there, and just said, hey dude, like, you know, come here every now and then, show your face around. I'll make sure I get you guys hooked up on dark. And so I was like, cool. So we had our first dark match against JD Drake and Ryan Nemeth. And it went over really well. Got a lot of compliments in the back. You know, we're just there as talent enhancement. So it was everything, you know, pretty simple for me. Bump and feed, you know. They gave us a little bit, and, you know, we took everything that they gave us, and they just kind of asked for us back. And the second time we had came back, we wrestled the Acclaim, and Sean goes, hey dude, like that security guard over there likes your look. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, he likes the way you look. He's like, did you say something to him? And I was like, no, he looks like he eats babies. Like, that's what I said. Like, Shane's a big dude. He's like 6'2.5", like 265. And I think at the time I met him, he was like 278. He's a big boy. And I had made the comment like, oh, dude, you eat babies or something? And he goes, look at you, you know? And so anyways, and he goes, hey, dude, I got to be honest. And this is Sean talking, Sean Dean. He goes, I got to be honest, dude, like, they really like you. They just don't know if they can use you. Mm. He goes, they like your work, you know? And I think if you want, they're trying to build a security team. If you'd be interested, I'd like to hook you up with the head of security. And I was like, yeah, let me know, you know? And at first I was kind of prideful about it. Like, wait, why can't you use me? And then the whole mentality of the Army and pushing me out. Oh, you can't do this. I almost said, fuck you guys. Yeah. You know, I'm good. You think I'm good. Why can't you use me? But in reality, you know, I'm a 38-year-old male, you know, in elements, and, you know, how long am I going to be able to wrestle? How much time does a company like that want to invest in somebody like me? You know, and I didn't take it as like a slap to the face or anything. I just took it like, oh, well, there's wrestlers that started late in their career. You know, why can't I restart my career again? And so I was happy. I did the first security gig with AEW, and I was taken aback by how professional that locker room is, and how everyone like takes care of one another, and it's really like a big family. And you know, I won't get in too much what happens backstage for obvious reasons, because I like my job. Yeah. But it's it's been an eye-opening experience about what a company can be, and I used to think they were this woke company, and they try too hard, like, oh, gay pride awareness month or whatever, like, I've never been the person that gave a fuck if you were gay to begin with. If you're gay, you're gay. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect my life, right? So it shouldn't be political. And I always felt like companies that would put shit out like that were overly political or woke, and that's not everyone's views, but like my view is just plain and simple. I just stay out of my life. I'll stay out of yours. It's pretty, so like, I got a lot of like flack from some of the guys I know, like, oh, you're working for a woke company or whatever. And that's not what it is. It's really not. AEW is essentially what I am. They don't give a fuck what you do as long as you're not harming others.
Right.
And Tony Khan doesn't really set out a preference of this or that, or you have to do this or you have to do that. They're very your body, your choice. We're not here to tell you what to do. Just make sure you can wrestle and be proficient at your job, And in my case now, it's make sure you can do security right and be proficient in your job, So I just feel very blessed to be in that position and to have this opportunity. And I took it and I ran with it. And now it's kind of like, I'm disappointed the weeks that I'm not there, So I have an 8-year-old daughter and a wife, and, middle of the week, it's so nice to just take a Tuesday to Thursday and be gone and still have,
weekends and
like Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, part of Monday, I'm getting ready. And then Tuesday morning, I'm out again. It's just awesome. Like I still get all of my family time. I'm retired. I collect my benefits, and here I am making great money being around a company I love.
Yeah. It's really refreshing to hear that's such a huge name, but they're so neutral and just supportive in the same sense, it seems, where it's of just anyone who is a good human.
And that's kind of where it's at, like they're not pressuring me to and I hate to bring this up, because I'm so tired of fucking COVID talk and everything like that, but they want me overseas. They want me over, and you can't travel abroad now unless you're vaccinated. So I'm on the fence with what I have to do or what I want to do. And that sucks. That's the only thing that sucks is they're not telling me I have to, and I'm very thankful for that. But in the same sense, they're also telling me we can't use you overseas if you don't come. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that. So,
but it sounds like you really found, like the revolving, is that the word I'm looking for? Like theme throughout your life is like finding purpose in these different avenues. And after like losing the military and having to rehab and go through all that kind of stuff, like you've found your place again.
Yeah. Well, working with troubled youth for 7 years, like I had a lot of purpose, like I really enjoyed that job, and it just emotionally it burnt me out.
Totally.
That's why I actually started the podcast. I needed connection. I needed that connection with people again. I wanted to tell stories that help people, or I wanted people to come their stories to help people. And so like with wrestling, like, I'm security. I make sure the wrestlers don't get jumped on or whatever. But I also do little things while I'm there. Like, oh, we had too many people sign pictures, right? Like some walking around with a picture of Sting or Ruby Soho, and I handed it to a little 12-year-old girl, little 5-year-old boy. You know what I mean? Like little things like that. Like it's just fun. And being around the business that I'm in, I'm able to keep people who love the business connected too, like yourself, and being able to call you up and tell you, hey, dude, or text you if I may, hey, that picture you sent was dope. Why don't you blow it up so I can get somebody to sign it?
Yeah.
It gives me a lot of joy to help people that love what I love, So
when you were working with the troubled youths, like what were the ages and what were their like circumstances? Was it like just shitty living situations, stuff like that?
No. So a lot of the youth I worked with were severely troubled youth. Like majority of the youth I worked with would burn out their placements in other states and then have to be placed at the placement I was at here in Arizona. So we had kids from like Baltimore, Washington, D.C., kids from Nebraska, Omaha, I believe, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska, Texas, Louisiana kids from Detroit. Like we had them from all over. And so I don't know. I felt like I served my country and I wasn't able to fully like commit to serving my country due to the annulment. So I was like, next thing I can do is give back to my community. And I was like, man, I want to be a cop, and then I took a ride along with Houston PD. I went to 2 domestic calls and I was like, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to kill somebody.
At least you can admit that though. So like some people still do it as cops and they burn out.
Yeah, I went to the first domestic violence call and I think the kid had been hit as well. And I about lost my shit.
Yeah.
And, I had a lot of trauma in my childhood from my biological father. So it was like, as soon as that triggered, I was like, yeah, I can't do this. I got to figure something else out.
Yeah.
And I found it's called rite of passage. I don't want to plug them for any reason because I don't like a lot of they've turned a lot of their views and that place has gone downhill. But it was once a pristine place where you felt good about changing young men and women's lives. And at, in a given time, I had 30 kids in my cottage. Mm-hmm. And so myself and 4 other staff members with 30 kids, and they're there 24/7. So we would work 3 16s and a 9. Ooh. And then shifts, but they wanted us there that long because that bond that you have to build with the kids is, So it was really rough on my marriage for a while with that job as well. And then I left the trouble kids the last year that I was there and I started working with the high needs kids and it kind of changed my time schedule a little bit. So it was nice, but the high needs kids were actually more emotionally draining than anything. Like just knowing that
giving so much of yourself.
Yeah. And you give a lot of yourself, and with high needs kids, you don't get a lot in return, but an occasional punch from an autistic kid, So it just sucked that you were giving so much and you weren't receiving a lot of it back. So it's just emotionally draining and I couldn't do it anymore. And that's why I just decided I was going to go through my VA process and take my retirement. So,
what kind of stuff did you do with the use? Like, did that process work? Working with them?
So there was like a lot of cognitive rebuilding like classes with them. We would also do like a lot of like thinking problem situations to help reduce like recidivism. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of classes that they could take on campus, like masonry, photography, Photoshop, carpentry, stuff like that, automotive, like, little things that I learned and kind of on my own, being a young man who didn't grow up with a father. Like I got to show those kids some of the stuff and things of how I learned how to do it being on my own. And so it was so rewarding to be able to give that to, young men who didn't have anything like I did. So, none of these kids grew up fatherless, or they were in group homes or boarding homes or whatever it may be. So it was always just kind of one of those things where I felt good working there, I think.
Did you feel that your history, your background, all the shit you went through, that was, you were kind of like made for a position like that you could connect with those kids at that age and like help them through, figuring life out?
Yeah. And then I mean, you said it all right there. But for me, though, too, it also gave me belief that I could be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like watching myself teach them, like it was, man, you're trying to make me emotional here. Now watching myself like teach them, and like it gave me that aha moment where I was just like, hey, dude, you fucking made it. Like you did this. Like you're living your life. You're successful. You have, 2 cars, 3 dogs, a fucking house, a beautiful wife, a kid. Like, and I'm thinking about all my past history shit while I'm talking to these kids about theirs and helping them try to figure it out. And I'm just like, hey, dude, like, relax. This ain't the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like, why? I fucking made it. You know what I mean? And it was a realization of myself more than anything. And it was like, oh, like this is what it became. Like it was, I had a lot of self-reflection and growth for myself helping youth.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're teaching. It seems like they were teaching you as much as you were teaching them, and the fact that you had that skill to self-reflect is a huge indicator of who you are when it comes to pressing forward and adapting and moving forward.
Yeah, I think childhood trauma is a PTSD that people don't ever focus on.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with you.
You being, a cop and, my prior service and everything like that, like, yeah, it's funny because some of the people that I've talked to through all my time, these kids, like a lot of people's trauma stems from when they're kids and it's never addressed.
Yeah.
It's never addressed. And then, then it clicked even more. Like majority of the people I served with grew up in trauma life. Like their backgrounds of their home, they left to go to the military.
It's almost like they were set up for that environment as a kid to have that survival instinct to survive the military.
Right. But then you're just taking one PTSD and then you're taking that
topping it on.
Yeah.
And
I think for me working with youth, I was able to kind of like work through my own problems of the military. Work through my own problems of how fucked up my childhood was. So it was like, dude, like it was just such a phenomenal job.
You're healing with them.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was.
Well, so the way we like to end this is we like to give, I say a minute, but I don't time it, so it doesn't really matter. A minute of if there's anything, if you were to impart wisdom on to anybody, anything you can tell them, what would you say to kind of help people through those rough times, or something that they're trying to do, they're told they can't do? Like what's something you would tell people?
That's funny. I'm just going to go to the old faithful here. And this isn't just because of the pandemic or anything that we're in right now. This isn't a political statement. This is just me from my heart. And I will say this: why live life like a lamb for 90 years when you could live like a fucking lion for 70?
Woo.
Go and be brave. Find something that drives you. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Short, sweet, to the point. Love it.
Amazing.
So thank you guys for listening to this episode. If you can, again, share, like, subscribe. If you can, give us a rating. Thank you to our sponsor, 9 Realms Athletics, 9realmsathletics.com. Promo code MANIFEST for a discount on your next order. You can follow us Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. And if you guys listening know anybody who has an awesome story, if you have a story that you think you could help people by telling, just message us, shoot us an email, a DM, text message. If you're in the gym, come talk to me, whatever. we want to get as many of these stories out to people as possible. So, Derek, really appreciate the time, buddy. As
you so
always.
much.
Oh, I love it, dude. And I will send you some recommendations. I have a few for you. So
Sweet.
Awesome. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks, guys.